the I'm a Fan Of podcast. Music, comedy, and more.
Jason McAdam, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
First of all, you son of a bitch getting here before me. Nobody does that.
Yeah, I got here before you, and I figured out how to get up
Dude,
here.
you found the door. Nobody finds this place. But no, normally they're like, hey, can we start early, like at 4:30? And then they show up at 5. And they're like, I'm sorry, I was running late. But anyway, good to have you. You're doing the Cowabunga show later, stopping in beforehand. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Dude, man, just talk to me about Tyler for a minute. Tyler Comedy, because you're kind of the right-hand man of this club as well as a performer there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So when it came to me and Christopher, it was like a kind of a dual effort in getting it all started. Mm-hmm. And at the very, very beginning, it was like he just took over the building and the space, and he wanted to. And the person who had it before was attempting to do comedy, but he just had no grasp on how to do it right at all.
Yeah.
And Christopher wanted to continue having comedy done there, but he was like, in his own words, he's like, I got too many pots on the stove. I can't juggle that. Like, I would need someone else to. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of entrusted to me to take it over, which I was hesitant at first because I'd never seen comedy work in Tyler before then.
Yeah.
But then literally all it took was like one show where it's like one show went pretty well and the second show sold out. And then it was like at that show, that's whenever he was like all in. And then it became officially a group effort between him and I.
That was a small little side room y'all showed me when I was up there, right?
Exactly.
I was looking through your Instagram, just looking for clips to refresh my mind, because it's been, maybe like 3 months since I got to see you out there? It's been a little bit, right?
Yeah, because it was back in January.
Yeah, that's right. And, I was just trying to find clips and stuff, and I was looking at the old pictures and the old clips of that small shotgun space, and part of me is really jealous that I'll never be able to experience that, because it's just so unique, and those weird spots that are that intimate always end up being just like, it's cool for that moment in time. It's never going to last that way. It's just like that fun memory that you guys are all going to have as Rose City gets bigger,
Absolutely. Yeah, doing shows, us moving to the bigger space and doing it the way we're doing it was definitely needed, and it's all for the better. But it was so much fun doing comedy in the low.
How small was it? It was like 20 people, 30 people?
We would sell it out and we'd pack it. I mean, there was one time we packed up to 44 people.
Dang.
But normally our capacity was actually 40, and it would be really tight in there, but it was so fun because it's like, versus how a lot of places would probably think of it, where it's like a hallway and you're at one end of the hallway and the crowd extends all the way to the back. Mm-hmm. We were like parallel with the hallway in the middle.
Yeah, the crowd was almost, from what I saw from the pictures, it looked like it was like a L shape around the stage, kind of, right?
A little bit, yeah. So it was like you looked to the left, there's crowd, there was a couple people, and to the right, there was a couple people.
Okay.
And in front of you, there was 2 rows of people, or like the stage is like at the front row's knees.
Hell yeah. So when you're walking up there, you're like, pardon me.
Exactly. You had to squeeze through the crowd to get to the little bit of stage we had.
Now, Ralph Barbosa was telling me a long time ago, because you said there was another guy trying to do stuff. Was it, when it was you two, was it like a cell phone repair place next to it or something? Was that the same thing I'm thinking of?
It was the same place.
He was telling me there was like, he's like, we were doing shows out there and like, they would like order pizzas and sell it by the slice. Was that y'all or was that the previous guy?
That was the previous guy.
Okay.
Which, it's funny enough, even after that guy left and Christopher took it over, it also still continued to be, it was primarily an iPhone repair store by day, and by night on the weekend, we do comedy shows.
Dude, that's so cool. Did y'all know the previous owner well, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's that went bad, the relationship with that guy.
But what made him want to do a comedy store in his cell phone repair place? A comedy, show.
Quite frankly, he's just a bit of a wacky guy. But to give him props, like if he didn't, like I said, although his attempt was poor, if it wasn't for his attempt, I'm not 100% positive that I would have like gotten started in trying to make comedy happen in Tyler, or just how soon I would have done it, how well it would have went, whatever. So he, at the very least, I know for sure is like what kickstarted me to give it an honest try. Yeah, because I could see from the outside looking in, I'm like, well, he's clearly doing this and this and this wrong. I was like, if he at least did these things, like that would make it better, like at least. Yeah. And once like it switched over to like me kind of having control of making changes in the room, then that's whenever. I got the shot, and then that's whenever it really took off.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've always felt like I'm not the best person at going like from square one. Like I'm going to start this and kick it off on my own. But I feel like if you've got the ball rolling even slightly, I've always been good at getting you to run with it. Like, here's what you're going for. I think we should do X, Y, Z. Kind of like you were saying. like maybe never had the original vision, but when people come to me with their ideas, I can usually hop on board and go,
Yes.
oh, what if we tried this, that, this, you know? And I'm glad to hear somebody else is like that, because it always makes me feel lazy that I don't have the original idea, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, what a interesting origin, like to think of what it's turned into now.
It's changed drastically since the very first
oh
time.
yeah, it's a legit club now.
It's wild. Like every time, like almost month by month, sometimes even sooner than that, you could always see like some kind of little change has been made.
Yeah.
Like by a little bit, and then occasionally be a big one. Like the initial change from the little room to the big room is obviously a big one.
When you started helping out the previous owner, what were the things that you saw, like from that you were wanting to change? I don't want to throw the guy under the bus, because I think it's cool that he started, like you said, and I don't know y'all's history, so I'm not looking to like shit on him. But what were the things you were noticing where it was like, oh, if we do this, it would improve it? Everything,
because I mean, because just to kind of explain, I mean, lots of the Dallas comics are aware, like had done some of the shows, they knew just how like kind of wacky they were. Mm-hmm. Basically, he got up there, he would host the show, he would get up there, and
well, so he was a comic himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he would get up there, and it was normally not very planned. It wasn't that often he actually had like a headliner come in or something like that. He would have an occasion, but most of the time he would have like a guy to come like kind of anchor down the show and to like have a decent set at the end. But it would be him hosting it, and he would do like 10 minutes maybe. Mm-hmm. And then whoever's in, and in between that, he would do his set. He'd do like 5 minutes at the top, and then he'd look at the crowd, like the 4 people that showed up or whatever. And in this crazy, wacky room that like...
Was it just like the lobby of the cell phone repair place? Is that...
I think technically...
Was it the same space that we were talking about? But
yeah.
It was obviously reconfigured because it was another business, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It was. I say reconfigured, but like you could see like the cell phone repair parts like on tables next to the stage. So it's not really converted at all. You just like... And next to the cell phone parts, that's where you do comedy.
Oh wow!
But yeah, after he would do his little bit of like 5 minutes up front or whatever, he would then look at the crowd, and be like, "All right, who wants to go up?" To the people in the crowd.
Okay.
And then it would just kind of and he would do that every single show, and then like his family would be in there, like his like wife with their baby would be over there, and it's like, I'll let the baby have a set. Who cares? You know, it's like and like,
at this time were you already performing as a comic as well?
So the very first time I did comedy, and normally whenever I kind of like map when I started comedy, I don't consider that time, because it was only like a few times I got on stage.
Okay.
Between the time like I really took it seriously and jumped in and then soon after started Rose City.
Yeah, but were you performing there when he was asking people
Yes.
to come up?
That's how I got on stage for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Because my buddy, who was also a big fan of comedy, he gave me a call one day. He was like, "Hey, there's a comedy club opening in Tyler," which is, it's like when you see the place, whenever you would actually see the place, it's like, all right, well, this is something different. But I was like, all right, exciting, cool. I had nothing else going on, and I had been writing down stuff, and I'd been wanting to go to an open mic, but it was just a matter of finding the time to go to Dallas to find the mic and figure out how the mic works, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's all like completely uncharted for me in that kind of way. And then me and my buddy show up to this place to go see the first show that this last guy ever had there, and we're outside waiting for it to start. And you could tell right from the get, like, it's not going to be anything great, just by how everything's produced, how everything's going. But it's, you know, whatever. And then he comes outside, he talks to us. He's like, all right. He's like, so you all getting on stage tonight? And me and my friend looked at each other. In my mind, I was like, yeah, fuck it. You got to start sometime. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll do it. And he jumped on as well. And so that's how I got my first set in. Went poorly.
Well, you hadn't thought had you thought of any material yet, or were you just up there winging it?
No, I had material. Like, this is all stuff I'd been writing down and like kind of planning for what I was going to do for the first set.
Gotcha.
But it was like one of those, and I went up there, and like I said, it didn't go very well. Like I didn't know how to write a joke at that time, really. Like I knew that's what I was supposed to be doing, but I hadn't figured out how to really do that. But it was one of those things, whenever I got off, I like throughout like the maybe 3 minutes I was up there, 3-4 minutes, I got like a chuckle or two, like a very timid, probably like giving it to me chuckle. Yeah. But then I got off, and immediately I was like, I can't wait to try that again. Because immediately in my head, I was like, I bet I could fix this, and that would get someone to laugh. And so I was immediately on top of it, even though it didn't go well, just because I was like, I bet I could figure this out.
Yeah.
You know,
that's exciting, man. I think that's probably the difference, right? Is someone who gets off there going, "That was a nightmare," versus "I can't wait to do it." You know?
You meet in comedy, you meet plenty of people who like their happiness depends on how their set goes. Like
I'm learning, yeah.
I've known plenty of people where it's entirely based on how well their set goes. If it goes bad, then they're like depressed until the next set that goes well, or. Which, I mean, I understand. It's kind of easy to do, but it's...
Well, and some of them have talked to me about how, like, if my next set's not for a week, I'm bummed for a week. And I'm like, geez, man, that hard.
It is rough, yeah. I'm closer to the beginning at the days, because just like anyone, it's not very good, slowly getting better throughout the course of your career and everything. Mm-hmm. And it was first, 6-8 months of Rose City Comedy, where this is where I'm getting all my time. Between the one open mic we did and the show we had on the weekends, and I was the one and only host for Rose City, so I was getting up on stage every week.
Well, is this still with the original person? Or is this when Chris and you were starting to...
It was with the original person, because it was there was maybe 3 shows, because he was doing them bi-weekly, or maybe not even quite that often sometimes.
Yeah.
And he asked me to host those shows, and that was my first experience hosting or anything like that. And so I did start there, but that didn't last but maybe 3 shows or so until it officially changed over and we changed the name to Rose City Comedy. 'Cause the last name we thought about at first, because at first we also didn't have a falling out with a guy.
Yeah.
But it just got really wacky. He was kind of delusional, a lot of what was going on, and. And the last name had so much stink on it. It had a bad reputation in the Dallas scene, which where we were planning on pulling a lot of, hopefully at least to pull a lot of our talent from. Mm-hmm. So it's all right, well, we just need to start from the beginning, because it's we're starting from negative already, just being in Tyler.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt us even more, because he not only affected his name but it also affected comics would have this mind don't even bother going to Tyler. Right. Because it's that venue, and it affected the whole city, and just don't avoid that place for comedy, essentially.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. It's interesting to think that it was kind of an awakening for me when I was going out there, because I was talking to Scott Bedgood when he was on here about just, he's from there, and just it's a city that, because it's in East Texas, when you're not from there, you forget that it's a city. It feels like everything in East Texas is a smaller town, right?
Yeah.
And it is a small town, but it's not small, It is it's a city. And so to hear you go oh, we're at a disadvantage, but then you think of the population that's already out there, and then in all the surrounding towns, and it's are you really at a disadvantage though? I think it's just because you're the first ones doing it, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think
you've
so.
got it all out there. The more I think about it.
Yeah, no, it's really worked out in a lot of ways. In some ways, I feel it's kind of a little bit luck, and then also there's lots of the hard work we put into it. But it's geographically, it kind of works out too. Because as far as East Texas comedy, proper comedy happening in East Texas, the only place I know of that was actually doing it is Tower City in Paris, Texas.
Right.
That's the only, as far as I'm aware, that was doing in East, and even them, they're hour and a half to 2 hours north of us. Mm-hmm. So it's...
But they've proven, because when they put on their festival, they get big names there.
Oh, yeah. No, they know what they're doing. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw Chris Kattan on the flyer one time, and I was like, oh my God, Chris Kattan's going to Paris, Texas?
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, this year, because I believe it's 3 headliners they have for each of the nights they do the festival. And this year they got one of them, as they announced it recently, was Doug Benson.
There you go.
Yeah. So wow. they know what they're doing. They're doing big stuff over there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to be a part of it, and and I got a friend who in Nacogdoches, he's now just started, because he moved from San Francisco, where he did his first year of comedy, hitting a crazy amount of mics, and he moved back to Nacogdoches, where he's originally from, and he's now starting a little bit of a scene there, which is
awesome.
Which is exciting for me, and it's so in my mind at least, it's this is it's the beginnings of kind of starting a network of East Texas,
absolutely,
having a whole comedy scene, and for us to kind of connect with each other.
Just talking to Vinny Corrales about that on the last episode, where Texas is, I think we're underestimating just how unique Texas comedy is going to be to the rest of the country, right? Most places, it's oh, you have this Boston scene or this New York scene or L.A. or the Bay Area or whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. Texas, we've all been commuters for so long, right? Everything's so spread out, that we've got this big triangle of the DFW Metroplex. Then there's, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, all those. There's all this stuff, right? But I think it's so easy to overlook these outlying areas and just how big they're getting and how quickly they're getting big. I don't think we're going to have oh, the Austin scene is huge, the Dallas scene is huge, whatever. I think it's going to be just this freak, like you have to go to Texas and you can spend like 2 months there doing comedy if you're not from here.
Yeah.
Because all these areas are going to have, like, you guys are grooming a well-organized scene out there already. And you're still, and it's still at the beginning phases, like you're still in the initial exciting part where it's not, I mean, I'm sure it's a grind, but it's not like you guys have been doing this for 15, 20 years and you're grizzled and jaded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, like when we pulled up, the experience we had, I had no idea what to expect. So like my buddy Chris that came with me, he loves going to comedy shows anytime. Like my wife won't go with me to check something out. She's like, no, let me know if it's good, and then I'll go. And then when she heard it was in Tyler, she's like, I'm not driving just in case it's good.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah, and I hit him up. I was like, hey, man, I'm going to go watch a show. Could be shitty. I don't know. And he's like, I'm down. Let's go. And from the moment we pulled up, man, like it was almost like a little bit of a movie scene because I didn't know what to expect, and it's that cool little downtown area. The lights are all on from the inside, so it's just like glowing onto the street. I didn't expect to see all the seats in the stage right from the row, and it was like, oh, it's right there. That's perfect. And then,
hard to miss, yeah.
Yeah, and then coming in, I won't name any names, but we get spoiled here in Dallas, and some of these clubs, more than others, it's like I think they forget that it's supposed to be incredibly fun to run a club. You should be excited that customers are coming in. Some of them I think are just a little too well, they're just shitty to their customers and to their comics.
Yeah.
And so when you walk in and it's like, oh, there's the owner, waving you down, checking you in, hey, sit there, whatever. It's like everything felt like, yeah, this is going to be a fun night. And when I first started going to comedy shows around here, that's what it was. And then as things just get kind of tired at certain areas, it's like they lose that spark of like, aren't you having fun? Isn't this a fun thing? It's comedy, And so that was the biggest thing I picked up on. And it was like, oh man, it has that fun spark that you want when you go out on a Friday or Saturday, I think you guys are going to have a lot of real big stuff coming through there. I mean, you already do. The amount y'all have grown in the last couple of years when I just see what y'all are doing on social media, that's why I was like, I've got to drive out because it just keeps improving, little by little.
That's something that's always surprised us from the beginning, which it's also really pleasant and kind of shows to the impression we're making to people outside of town too. Is because I remember even at the beginning, whenever it was like we had like no money basically to give anybody.
Yeah.
At the very, very beginning when we didn't even know if this was like people are going to show up to shows and stuff. It just showed, like I was surprised like that who would drive from Dallas or like who would drive from far away to come check out what we're doing, whether it was for the proper show or even the open mic.
Yeah.
And like, as the longer we do it and the better it gets, it's like it just keeps happening more and more. People like you, where it's like it's like you have plenty of options out here in the DFW area as far as like like proper clubs go that you could go to or other shows that are ran, and you decided to make the trek out to Tyler and check out what we're doing. And so that alone was like a huge compliment for us.
Do you feel like you're a proper club yet? Because you say it like
the
you're
reason
not.
The reason why I say proper club is because like we don't we're BYOB. We don't sell drinks or food or anything. It's strictly like it's just you come, you pay for the ticket. And that's the only thing we have to offer, other than like some Dr. Pepper or whatever, So
but I think
that's why I say proper club, because like we're doing quality shows. I'm not gonna pretend like we're not.
Well, and you skimmed over that. You're selling tickets.
Yeah,
that's a big feat all on its own. Whether or not you're selling alcohol, that's whatever. That's just liquor license, and it's difficult to get. And those, it costs money to do those things. But selling tickets to any show, that's a club.
Yeah, no, it's the club part is the reason why I keep putting it in quotations, is because it's like.
So should we call it like a comedy experience?
Yeah, I was like venue room. I don't know. It's,
yeah.
I remember for a little bit, the owner Christopher wanted to kind of refer to it more as like a small theater than anything.
Okay, which
kind of makes sense, but it's just there's no ring to it. There's no way. So we've just kind of like accepted the comedy club moniker just because it's like for lack of a better word, don't.
You know what? We'll get rid of all that. It's Rose City. We just leave it at that then.
Yeah,
right?
I mean the official name of it is Rose City Comedy and stops right there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because Tyler's Rose City, and it's very, very, and there's 1,000 businesses that are called Rose City Plumbing, Rose City Electrical, Rose City Hair Salon, whatever. It's so it's like we had to have the extra little Rose City Comedy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah.
I mean, I love it, man. I think when Scott and I were talking about it, he said it best. He's like, they punch way above their weight. That's how he described it. And I was like, that's really the perfect way to do it. Because there are a couple places here where I would rather go to Tyler than to go back to a couple of these spots. Unless, like, they're going to have somebody really enticing for me to go to their show. Because my wife and I have just gone so many times where we're like, I am so over that place. When it feels like it's a grind and it's your local thing, it's like, how is driving an hour and a half more pleasant?
Well, I think there's lots of things that go into that. One, it's like we're very specific about the way we book the shows. It's I'm the one who books all of the shows, and I do my best to try to make sure it's going to be a quality show, like people who can hang and can make a crowd laugh. Because ultimately, the truth of the matter is we're not bringing anyone in with like name recognition where their name's going to sell the tickets, and that's fine. It's because we don't necessarily we just need quality shows. And so we've built a reputation on like you can go to Rose City Comedy and you could see a good show.
Yeah.
And so that's one of, and I think and I was just talking to Kevin DeAnda because he was on the last Saturday show with me. And I was just talking where he was saying that it's like we do all the working out in this little like in our scene over here in DFW, but whenever you do get a show like this out of town, or like Rose City especially, because that night he was doing 20 minutes, and he's like you get to kind of like stretch your legs a little bit. He's like, now's the time where there's no bullshit. Like it's like we're now swinging for the fences, and we're gonna try to like make our best impression of ourselves. So I think that's another aspect of it as well, where it's like you catch someone who's doing a set here. Not saying it's happening often, but there's a possibility that maybe like in the middle of their set, they're like, I got some new stuff I need to try, which is okay. But it's at Rose, like I said, at Rose City, when we're bringing people out of town, more than likely these are all people who are like bringing their A game, Well,
what about because you're the opposite of that. You're out working out in Tyler all the time, but you're getting these shows around DFW as well. How do you what to you is the difference when you're doing that?
I'm kind of doing the same thing where it's like at home I'm trying stuff out more often. Most of the trying stuff out, like I never try like a brand new thing out like on a show, right? Because it's like always there's the obligation to deliver a good show and give these people their money's worth and everything. But normally what it is like, but I also have a little bit of pressure where it's like, because like you said, Tyler is a city, but it's like a small city, and where we have
there's a shitload of people, but they still wave when you drive by.
Yes, exactly, yeah,
yeah,
and so. And so even though like most of the people we're getting at the shows are new people generally, we also have plenty of people who are repeat customers. And, it's like, and I don't host every single weekend for that exact fact because it's like, well, it's, we need to try to switch up the lineup as often as possible. So that way people are always guaranteed to see new stuff every time they come, whether it's a new comic or new material from the same comic, whatever. And writing material is really hard. It takes a long time to come up with like a new like 10, 15 minutes. It takes a long, long time, especially the newer at comedy you are. So I try to write as often as I can so that way I can always bring at least something new to the shows at Rose City. But generally it's like somewhere a mix between like my best hitting stuff and like some kind of newer stuff that has been working a little bit. So that way it's like, all right, so if there is anyone in here that has happened to see me before, I can at least give you a little bit of new something.
Yeah.
But whenever I make these treks out to like I come out here to Dallas or Austin or wherever, that's whenever it's like, all right, now it's just all the stuff that works. I'm
excited to hear how you like the Cowabunga show tonight.
I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I feel like those dudes are doing some real fun stuff. And when you meet Niaz and them and they're two totally different personalities, but they're very, like, Niaz almost feels like a mayor. Like he's running around like greeting, hi, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. He's like always trying to get in on stuff and meet people and build it up. Like he genuinely cares about it. And like I said, it almost feels like it's a trick. Like, what do you want? You can ask me for like $5 or something. But they've been doing these bar shows that are in this weird in between where it doesn't feel like a bar show. Because a lot of bar shows that people put on, there can be like a sad, like an exhausted feeling to that bar, and the regulars in there drinking are just like, oh, I guess they got a comedy thing going on, And they have built up something where these bar regulars in these different towns are coming out for the comedy show.
Nice, I love that.
So it's this weird spot in between like a comedy room and a bar show. And they've just got their own kind of spin on it. And both of them are comics, love comedy, so they, just like you were saying, they take the booking very seriously. Like they give people shots, but if you're not hitting where you need to, it's like it might be a while before you get back on, like brush up on it. And I think everybody loves being on that show, so I hope you like it too.
I'm very excited. I've heard good things about it, and it's why I'm excited to be on. Why I wanted to try to get on the show and everything. And I'm not exactly sure what hadn't heard much specifics other than it's just like a fun show. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I'm glad to hear that. I think consistency is a huge thing. Like you said, like how like now they have like kind of like people who come out and they're excited to come see the show at the bar and stuff. I think consistency. I've seen it happen a bunch of times where people, whether it's an open mic or a show, and they try this new thing and wherever they're at, and it doesn't work like 2 times in a row, or it doesn't work like maybe 3 times in a row, and they're like, well, I guess it just doesn't work, and they give up on it. And I'm like, no, man, it's like you get like...
Well, and like starting from a cell phone repair place, you know how it's like, once you're doing it, it's like as you can afford to upgrade a thing here and there, it's like, okay, we can finally build this little stage that's, 6 inches off the ground. We can finally get a couple lights to separate the, you start noticing the tiny little things that really improve your show, that maybe you didn't notice before. And I think that's all it is. The people who stick with that, who realize like incremental progress, all of a sudden a year down the road, you've made something really cool.
Exactly. And even with the minimal amount of stuff, as long as like you use it to the best of its ability, you could generally put on still a decent show.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. It's like we worked with like the very tiny bit of stuff we had. I remember I took off multiple days from my day job at the time. I took off multiple days just to come up there and like do work at that room to try to make it the best it can for the upcoming show.
Yeah.
And that was like a regular thing we did often. And sometimes there'd be bigger products than others. And but you are absolutely right where it's like, those incremental things make all the difference. Those little bit of changes, and sometimes you can find like extra cheap ways to make something work, and like I remember for the longest time, I mean even now like they're nothing crazy, but I remember like our first version of a spotlight, it's like a $10 lamp you can get from Walmart. Like sits on a floor, or it can go on the wall. So and that's what we use. Like with like
it's just got a cone that you just get it going.
Exactly. Yes, and it did the job.
It works perfect, man. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love like the idea of just like, I mean, I think that's why you're gonna like the Cowabunga guys, because Niaz and I, well, even Vinny, we all kind of have like a music background, and we all love like punk rock music, and there's all this big DIY thought process in that, and I feel like that's so much of comedy is like figure it out. Yeah. Get it done. Why wait on something?
Yeah. It's something that's, being a part of Rose City Comedy has been really fulfilling. And other than just like trying to do comedy myself, it's been fulfilling a lot of other ways. It's what made me realize that like I'm not lazy actually. Because like I would think of myself in any of the jobs I ever had beforehand. And I would always think of myself, not necessarily lazy, but like, I was never the type of person to go above and beyond. I'm like, you pay me for the job I need to do. And
what kind of jobs were they?
I mean, I worked for the state last time. I was just a caseworker, and it was nothing crazy. I would just process applications for like food stamps and Medicaid.
That sounds like a mind-numbing job.
Yeah, and I did that. I did that for 10 years. It's for the first 5 years, it was just like the telemarketing side of it. Like taking phone calls, answering questions, and the other half of it was the actual doing the casework job of it.
So you were taking phone calls for people who wanted to get on food stamps? Is that what it was?
Yeah, or they had questions about their food
about
stamps.
How to use them?
Yeah, exactly. Like, can I buy cigarettes with these?
I said that was mind-numbing, but it's also really interesting, I imagine, like a little peek behind the curtain. I've always been fascinated by, I grew up, there's different tiers of poor. Everybody's version of poor is very different. And we grew up, like, we always had food, we always had shelter, we didn't need anything, but there was really nothing after that. So that was kind of our level of money. So it felt poor, but like growing up like that, you don't know you don't have money, right? And so you don't think about it until you're older, and you're like, oh, they have a lot nicer stuff than we have. I like staying the night at their house. But, I've always thought it'd be fascinating if you could get different levels of poor people to like release their finances to you and show how they run their budget. Because I'm shocked at how some people make it on very little money.
It's quite amazing. It's I don't know if amazing is really the best word, but it's pretty crazy just like how some people have to get by. It is really, really crazy. I remember especially the call center part of it. There's a lot of people who they do the job, and at first, at the very first, like anyone doing the job typically has like sympathy for the people calling. Yeah. But very quickly, because all it takes is a few irate customers, and then like it's really easy to become jaded.
Yeah.
To these
real
people.
Exactly.
And
it's over the phone, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that extra level.
But of course, these people are mad because they're like and their life is extremely difficult right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, and sometimes it's like whether it's intentional or not, like you're just going to be the person who's going to get the anger projected at you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Oddly enough, I kind of towards those last couple years of doing the call center part of it, I kind of got to a part where I almost enjoyed it. Not just any call and every call, but I almost liked getting the angry people or the people who were just difficult in general, because I'd gotten really good at like navigating that and circumventing that and
like calming them down. Or...
Yeah, but in ways that I think other people wouldn't think to do it. Like I was always like on the line of like what like I was supposed to do and not like professionally. Like,
so what's something that they would get, like what was a common thing they would get angry about? That's, that someone would call in and you're like, okay, here we go.
Probably because people you apply for food stamps or whatever, or SNAP benefits that you apply for them, and then we have to, or we, like I still work there, and then the state would have to request like information, like proof, whether it's like proof of your income, proof of your address, whatever, that kind of stuff, and then they send in something, and then it's like just not quite what we needed. Or maybe sometimes the fact we had to request for anything at all. Like some people, like they were hoping to get like, because you can get benefits, you can get approved for like expedited, which is like you get them like the next day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that isn't even that fast, especially if we have like we're backed up on applications. So it's like the expedited was really a week or two later. It's and so like, and
they probably got it in their mind like, I did everything. I should be getting this next week, and now
exactly.
It's delayed.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. And or a lot of times too, it's like we would do most of the correspondence through like mail. There is electronic, like apps and stuff for it, but not a lot of people, or not. A good chunk of people weren't using it, should I say. And so a lot of people were still relying on the mail. And it was like, well, we sent out a notice requesting this information, but they didn't find out about it until after the due date. So now they've been denied and they got to restart. And they're like, I need help now.
Were you working like for that area out there as well? Or was it like, how big was the area of people that would be calling in?
It was for the whole state of Texas.
Whole state?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And for the job, there was 3 call centers that did what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I was just at one of them, and all 3 call centers took calls for the whole state of Texas.
Holy crap. That seems really, that seems like y'all would get bogged down real quick if there's only 3 of y'all taking calls. I mean, three facilities. Even, This Texas is huge.
Yeah, it did. At times, at times it definitely did. Yeah.
Oh my God. So you were on the phone for like 8 hours a day just talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Whew. And then that was for the first, and the next 5 years was just behind a computer, putting in information for an application and stuff, and, and like doing interviews with. Which
one did you like better?
The casework one, just because I had a lot more freedom. Because the first job, I technically wasn't employed with the state. Mm-hmm. I was employed with a company that was like contracted to take the phone calls and stuff.
Gotcha.
And then once I was actually like with the state itself doing the casework, I had a lot more freedom. I was treated like an adult, actually. Mm-hmm. Like they actually trusted me to like make decisions on my own. Like I didn't have to have a very like, this is the rules and you have to follow it to the T. Mm-hmm. And
because being the state, I imagine that's tricky. Like, there's a lot of red tape. You don't want to accidentally screw something up.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that's a fascinating job.
I didn't really mind doing it so much. It was just the only reason why I stopped, because it was a nice, secure, stable job, and the only reason why I stopped is just because it started getting in the way of how often I could do comedy and how serious I could take comedy. Yeah. And so I changed that to I bought a hot dog cart, now I sell hot dogs.
No way.
That's my full-time job. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You're a hot dog man?
Yeah.
We're going to get to that in a second, but real quick, how many poor people
eat hot dogs? A lot.
Yeah. No, sorry. What would be the more appropriate way to phrase someone who's using those benefits when they're calling into you? Like, you don't call them just like, oh, we got these poor people. Like, what do you know?
No, it's just clients.
Just clients. So, like, how many clients do you think, did it feel like it was a lot, the appropriate amount, or not that many people who needed that kind of assistance when you were working there?
It felt like I would say the vast majority needed it, because I know there's.
But I mean, just compared to the whole state of Texas, like, are a lot of people. Were you dealing with so much where you're like, Jesus, we have this many people in Texas who need this? Or did it feel like, it's about right? I
don't know. It did feel like a lot, but I don't think that was surprising to me. Like, I think it to me, it reflected about what I thought, which was a lot. It's personally, I did grow up poor. I was on food stamps. Like, my family's on food stamps my whole life. So none of it was a surprise to me. It felt kind of right. That how many people it was.
Is that how you got into this? Is because you were part of that?
No, honestly,
totally random?
I applied for the job for the call center when I didn't even 100% know what the calls were about. I was just like literally at the interview, because it's one of those jobs where they'll like hire a bunch of people at once because they know that like 80% of them are going to quit immediately, kind of thing. Yeah. And I remember at the interview, the guy even asked me, he's like, "Do you know like what we do here?" And I was like, "Yeah, call center, take calls." And like, "Do you know what the calls are about?" I was like, "I got to be honest, I don't." So,
he's like, "That's okay. 17 people just quit. We need someone."
Exactly. So, and I just needed a job, and so, and then I went from just I need a job to I'm there for 10 years of my life.
Did you? Did you feel like it changed the way you did that job at all, knowing that you were raised on food stamps also?
Yeah, no, it helped me stay sympathetic. It helped me like keep from getting jaded or anything like that, or like kind of resenting the clients necessarily, because I saw that a lot with a lot of people and it's really easy to get angry at these people, especially if you personally are having a bad day. It's really hard to not like kind of project that onto them. Yeah,
because that's one of the old. That's like one of the first things you hear when you talk about benefits to people, right? Like if they're like, there's all these people in Cadillacs on food stamps. It's like, okay, I'm sure that happens, but it's not like they're all doing that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the easy thing to go to, and
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people who have that exact type of bias or like that kind of thing, where it's almost as if in their mind like that's like most of them are doing that kind of like they're tricking the system, and of course there are those people. However, the amount of people who need it and it truly helps, like I feel like outweighs that other number by a lot. Where it's like, you're going to have the people who are using it wrongly, but that doesn't mean you need to punish all the people who like they really need the help.
Yeah, it's not like you see, oh, I got my food stamps, let's go to the Ferrari dealership. So what are you talking about? You just don't hear that. And it's like the level of people who are, because I imagine that would be a lot of the anger behind some of those calls is like if it were me right now, and I have a wife, I have a 4-year-old. If something happened in our life, which by the way, most people are not that far away from needing that type of assistance, right? It's like you got fired from this job or something catastrophic happened. You're not that many degrees away from needing that. And it's like the pride aspect of like
it takes a lot to have to apply for it. I mean, I've been in the position myself as an adult, and it takes a lot. It takes a chunk out of your pride for sure to have to be like, I guess we need it. You know what I mean?
I imagine that helped you a lot because you would understand that feeling of like, I have to call and ask. I have to ask for help.
It makes it made it a lot easier. For sure. I think it would have been a lot harder for me if I hadn't had the background in doing it and stuff for sure.
Oh, so you were using that after you had worked there?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Not for too long, but
yeah. I mean, you never know. Like I've had plenty of friends who dip into unemployment for a little bit, and it's like stuff happens, and it's like that's what I've always talked about with people. It's like, isn't that the benefit? Like, isn't that supposed to be one of the benefits of living in a rich, powerful country? Yeah, no, that's what it's there for. That's what ultimately you have to remind yourself. It's like, oh, sometimes like anyone's capable of getting in this position, and that's what it's there for. So it's kind of and like literally these are, and what I'm saying to you is the things I had to say to myself, and it's what I would say to the clients I was on the phone with at times, because oftentimes you get people who they admit over the phone that like it's hard for them to have to apply for this, that it hurts their pride or whatever. And I have had to reassure them that same kind of way, where it's like, it's like this is like what it's here for. And like everyone's potentially could end up in this position. Yeah. So it's like take use of it, while you can. Yeah. I will say out of the best calls I got, and it wasn't like too often, but I got them enough, were the calls of people who call and they're like, hey, I just want to let you know, because anytime you have any change in your life, like you're supposed to call and report it while you're on benefits, that is. You're supposed to call and report it. So like you had a change in income of your job, you changed jobs, you got a new job, whatever, address. And people who would call like, hey, I just want to let you know that I got a new job and I make enough to where I don't need benefits anymore. So you can just take me off of benefits. I bet those are great calls.
And you could hear like had the happiness in their voice to be like, I can get off this now. Yeah. And I can rely. And it's like, and I feel like those are the types of things that I feel like the people need to hear. The people that do like, oh, people on food stamps driving around in Cadillacs, or that's what they need to hear is like, oh no, there's also lots of people who they're thrilled to be getting off of benefits, and they're like, hey, I got it together. And I'm like, you can now, take these back and give them to someone who needs them. Yeah, because it doesn't matter what you do. There's always going to be somebody who scams something a little bit, right? And it's like, okay, is it worth screwing over all these people because that one asshole? Let's just figure out a way to deal with that better. It's like the vast majority of people don't do that. How do you remember, like,
surely, did they ever share any statistics with y'all about like how long the average person was on this and how long it took them to get off or anything like that?
They might have. If they did, then I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably did at some point, though.
Yeah.
It's always the case in any classroom setting. It's really, really hard for my eyes not to glaze over immediately.
100%.
And it's like, look, I'm gonna be real. All the training is gonna come from on the job. It's hard for me. Like it's really, really hard for me to focus for prolonged.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
Probably undiagnosed ADHD, but whatever.
I'm the same way. Like school was always, I did okay at school, but I could have done better if I'd focused more, right? And I don't know if I had like ADHD or if it's because we were, having like a cinnamon roll and a Dr. Pepper on the way to school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's like, because that's cheaper than like healthy food. And it was like, hey, have one of these off-brand Miss Barrett's cinnamon roll, and then what was the Walmart soda? Sam's Choice.
Oh, Sam's Choice.
Yeah, or Sam's Choice. And it's like, that was like, all right, now focus in school. And then my son's the same way. He's 4. He's wild. I'm already like, God, he's going to have problems when we get in school, like just sitting there,
Yeah.
But anyway, so you transition out of that. Now you're in the hot dog game?
Yeah, that's right.
Bro.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, no, it's it was a series of events that led to the hot dog cart specifically. The first one being that like me and another one of the local Tyler comics were outside of the Rose City talking one day, and we were talking about like if we can get a food truck to park like right over here.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly kind of threw that idea out the window because it's like, oh no, like food trucks won't make enough money to come right here. It's just not worthwhile. And then we played with the idea of like, what if Rose City themselves opened a food truck here? And I tried to throw that to the owner, and they were, and at the time Christopher was away and his sister was running things for a little bit, and she didn't bite at it because it's like, it takes money to do that kind of thing and all that. And then I thought, and then like the more I sat on it, the more I was like, why can't I do that? It's like why can't I be the one to do it instead? And it kind of grew from there, and kind of like I was talking about a little bit earlier. Whenever I said that like being involved in Rose City comedy taught me that I'm not lazy, and actually that I have plenty of work ethic as long as it's something I give a shit about. Which I think is fair.
Yeah,
and it also taught me that like it's more possible to do these kind of ventures than I initially had thought. Because like whenever I first started with Rose City Comedy, or not even Rose City Comedy, with the place before that, when it was just ideas, I was like, well, they could change these things and do this different. It was all just ideas. Like I didn't think for sure this was going to make good, but also he was doing it so badly that it was like clearly like, get rid of the wacky, stuff hanging from the walls, or like, or like it was like clear. I was like, anyone could guess that.
You're gonna have to send me a picture of the old place, by the way. You gotta
absolutely,
have one.
I have them. Yes.
I gotta see
I'll
what
send
we're
them,
talking about at some point.
I have a few of them. I can go find them and send them for sure.
Yeah.
But it's still, it was all just theory. Like I didn't know it was actually going to work. Even whenever it was like I was given the offer from Christopher to fully take it on and like actually like fully try to do comedy on the way I wanted to do it there, I was hesitant because I'm like, I don't know. Like I think this is how it'll work. Like I think this will make, but I don't know. And then learning just how possible it is to make it happen. And as long as like you just have like the willingness to do it and the drive and all, like that's what, because I've known people that do something and they start like half-assed and it doesn't go well and it doesn't really pan out, and it's because of that. So all this gave me the confidence to be like, I think I could go self-employed. Like I think if I go the right, pick a right business, then I'm not like 100%, ignorant to.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a pretty good cook, like at home at least.
Yeah.
But at the same time I was like, but I don't know like what, like any kind of thing I would serve. And then that same buddy of mine texted me and he was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like, and he sent me like a picture of like a Volkswagen bus that was converted like to a truck bed in the back or whatever. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like serve hot dogs from this? And that's what made me be like, oh, hot dogs is perfect. And then I did lots of research from there, and then that's where it took off and eventually landed with the hot dog cart, and I found one, and then I do that full time in Tyler.
What's the cart like? Is it like like what you see on like a New York style hot dog cart, or is it? It's
similar to it.
Yeah.
The one I bought was built by a guy who lives in Tyler, and he sold hot dogs there for like 3 years, and then I bought it from him because he just gotten like too old.
So where do you post up?
I got just locations around town. I have a few like
it's on wheels. You can just like move to where you want to go, right?
Yeah, I hitch it to my truck. I drive wherever I need to, and then it's a push cart, so I can push it wherever I need to set up. And sometimes I'll go to the square downtown, but other times I'll go out to Home Depot a lot of the times. And
yeah, dude, that's perfect for what you're trying to do with comedy as well.
Yeah,
because you can just work when you need to, and like.
Yeah,
it's a way more fun version of Uber, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, it's
and who doesn't love a fucking hot dog? Like you're selling happiness, right?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I take pride in the hot dogs I sell because I don't like.
Oh, I'm not knocking it anyway.
Because you could. I mean, I've learned we can go deep in a hot dog talk.
I'm happy to,
but because I've learned from there's hot dog cart communities. Mm-hmm. There's like Facebook groups dedicated to it, even for people who own them and stuff.
Yeah,
and I've learned that there's like two different types. There's like the type of hot dog cart owner who like they just sell to whoever's walking by. And they have like the cheapest version of typically a beef hot dog they can get, but it's still like the cheapest version of it. And it's all just like basic stuff. And like they don't even take pride in their product. They're just like, I sell hot dogs. Who gives a shit?
Right.
And then I'm like in the other boat of people where it's like I go out of my way to make sure like to get like the best quality hot dog I can get. I make the chili myself, and I have like a few specialty options on the menu that like you're not going to get anywhere near Tyler and stuff like that. And there's something about mine where it's like I take pride in it, and I think the hot dogs I serve is good, and like I get repeat customers.
Yeah.
Where the people in the first group, they just get whoever comes by. They could give a shit. They're going to forget they had this hot dog in 2 days probably.
Well, it's proof of like it doesn't matter what you're doing, just do it extremely well.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the key. It's like if you're going to do hot dogs, let's fucking do hot dogs.
Yeah.
Like cuz like you said, you can get like let's just stay on hot dogs, it's right. Like we can go to a like a baseball game or something, and it's like that's one of the things I'm going to want there, right? I'm going to want hot dog nachos before I leave that night. And it's like, even though it's cheap ballpark stuff, it's like you can either ruin that experience for me or you can give me a great, cheap ballpark hot dog, right? And it's like, you can mess up a cheap hot dog still, or you can make a cheap hot dog incredible. So now if you actually care about it one more step and you think, I want to do some better ingredients.
Yeah.
Now you can make it like really good. And I don't care who you are. People love that experience of like getting it off of a cart, a food truck. They like that. And so if you do that really well, it's like your hot dog cart is going to be someone's story at work next week about like, oh, we went down to do this thing. We got these hot dogs. It's great. This guy, Jason, he's down there every time and we go to him. And it's like, there's an experience there, right? And like, I wasn't joking around. It's like, think about that you came from this call center, which although you were helping people, it's a potentially very sad day every day when you're talking to people needing help and benefits, and you might have to tell someone, I'm sorry, not this week, next week. And like,
or that they're not getting it at all.
Yeah. Like you're giving very bad news on a lot of occasions, right?
Yeah.
To now, like, have you thought about, you've gone from that to now you sell laughter and hot dogs. Yeah. Two things people love. Like
happiness on all fronts.
Yeah, man. Like that's a pretty good day when it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do hot dogs for a few hours, then I gotta catch a set over here.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that, like kind of total 180 of going from potentially negative day to totally positive day?
Not necessarily that like specific Have
you ever thought about that for them? That's kind of cool, right? Yeah,
not necessarily that specific angle, but yeah, kind of. I mean, like the part, because there's still parts of like the hot dog cart that like is a job that's not like the funnest to do, you know?
Yeah, but the base of it is.
But like, you know, it's like the setting up and tear down and going and all that. But yeah, the actual job itself of selling the hot dogs, yeah, I enjoy that because, like I said, it's a product I'm proud of, and it's like to see people enjoy it and to have repeat customers, and yeah, no, it's awesome, it's great, and I really really like people being surprised at times where they're like,
I was going to say,
I didn't know a chili dog could get that good.
I was going to say you have one of those jobs where a lot of times you see instant gratification. Where what's the first thing you do after you pay for the hot dog? Right, couple steps away. Big ass bite of the hot dog, right? So you get to see people going like, delicious. Oh, it's great, right? And it's like a lot of jobs you don't get that. It's like you sell a product and it's like, I hope they enjoy it.
Exactly. I also get a lot of people who they'll come back too. Like within like 10 minutes, they'll be like, I gotta get another one. So it's, and people are surprised. Whether it's like my favorite comment that I get is people who. I'll get a hot dog because I might be like the only person selling food at this like event or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I sell a few hot dogs, and then someone will come back by and they'll be like, I gotta say, I don't like hot dogs. I normally don't eat hot dogs. That was a great hot dog.
What are you doing different to yours?
Well, sometimes it's not the great. Like normally the people who got those normally aren't even getting any like the specialty crazy hot dogs I do. Like because I have like one like I make bacon jam for, and it's got like cream cheese and bacon.
What's bacon jam?
I make it.
He throws that out there like I know what bacon jam is.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure some people do.
If it's a secret recipe, I'm not.
It's
probing
not.
your-
It's
okay,
not. No.
okay.
It's really it's just basically 4 ingredients. It's like bacon and grilled onions. Then thrown together, and you let them kind of cook together with some brown sugar and a little bit of balsamic vinegar at the end.
Oh, see, I was thinking it was like a spread, like a mustard or something. It's just those. It's like a thing you put on top, kind of like relish.
Yeah, but it's got it's like the consistency of restaurant, maybe like a chutney, maybe I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's chunky. You got it's a bunch of bacon and onions like sweetened together. As that with some stone ground mustard on top and cream cheese on the bun makes for a pretty damn good dog.
Yeah.
But sometimes the people who are saying that, normally they're not even getting those hot dogs. They're normally just getting something like, just mustard relish.
I was going to say, that's
nothing crazy.
I'm the guy you probably would be like, come on, man, try this. Because I'm just like, plain mustard. That's all I ever want on
Even
it.
that's because half the time when I'm just having to eat lunch and it's my own food, most of the time I'm just going for like just a basic one. Just because it's sometimes it's just what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah.
So I never, not shunning anyone. But normally they're just getting, honestly, really what it comes down to is 2 things for the most part. Is I'm just using like a good brand because I use the Nathan's brand, Nathan's hot dogs. And I think most people are probably not familiar with different brands of hot dogs and how they could be good. They're like, a hot dog's a hot dog. Who gives a shit?
Right.
I think it's probably how most people feel about
you
it.
say that until you get a bad one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that, and also I keep the buns steamed so they're nice, like, and soft. And that, literally the same exact brand, steamed or just out the bun, like kind of like the way it comes, room temperature, makes all the difference. And you know, and those 2 things I think is all it takes for people to be like, oh, holy, like this, like satisfied something in me I didn't know it could. You
ever going to get crazy with it and like start baking your own bread and start making your own links?
I've from the beginning I thought about doing that, but it's like I would have to invest a lot of money and get certain spaces and probably have to have a brick and mortar because to bake my own bread I would have to have like a giant oven and giant like it's
yeah. But I'm starting to pick up the vibe that we were
right.
talking about incremental steps that you're slowly. In like a year or 2, you're going to be like, I picked up this used oven. It's in the garage. I'm just fucking around with it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, no, it's because.
Did you watch any of the Chef's Tables on Netflix?
I think I watched like the first 3 or 4, maybe.
Did you see the barbecue ones that they did?
I did not know.
I'll shoot you a message or something, but you need to check those out because they went to these barbecue spots. Like the original Chef's Table. It's like they're going to these incredible restaurants where like. High class, real small portions, everything you expect out of like extreme fine dining, which is not my taste, right? And then they did a whole like 1 season on these different barbecue places, and it's like this person might specialize in brisket, this person might specialize in hogs, right? And a lot of it, it's barbecue, right? It's like you've got the particular meat that you do really well, and you've got your take, like your specific way that you like to do it all. And then maybe they just take extreme pride in how they do like the pickles and onions, whatever that little recipe is or whatever. But they shoot it all and they show you all, the ways they get up early and do everything. And they're little like, this is what makes mine special, And it's like there's one woman, I forget her name. She's here in Texas somewhere, but she's like 85 years old and she's been working in this place for 40 years, and she's the pit master and she still gets there at 5 a.m. or whatever.
I think it's called like Frost, Texas or something like that. Or maybe the venue or her place is called Frost. I could be wrong.
I can't remember her name, but I think you're right. Yeah, but she's like somebody owns it, but she's like the person that and it's like I can see you getting deep with your hot dogs like that. Because really, like the stereotype is a hot dog is all the meat you would never want to eat, right? Like it's, if you talk to like a European, they're like, I would never touch that.
Yeah.
But you can make it out of good cuts and make interesting things out of it,
Yeah, no, I have, and right now the menu's small because I don't have a lot of space, but I plan on eventually like doing like a monthly hot dog, and that's got something weird and different on it every time. So that way it's like, it's always unique and something, and it keeps it fun for me, and I think people would respond to that well.
Dog of the day.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's...
you watch Bob's Burgers at all?
No, not really.
Man,
I know.
Do you? No?
No.
You need to check out.
We're a Family Guy household.
And that's fine. You're going to love it. You can like both. But he does a burger of the day, and it's always a ridiculous name that has to do with the ingredients, and it's always fun. But anyway, we'll get you on Dog of the Day, whatever you want to do. But do you think you would always want to keep it as the cart, or do you think you would want to get like I could see you doing like a window would be really fun.
Yeah, that
where you don't have to worry about people dining in. You're just still doing to go.
I eventually want to upgrade, but
Yeah.
I eventually do want to upgrade, but just specifically so I'm inside walls, ideally. As I don't, it's like being exposed to elements is very annoying because it's especially on windy days. I got like shit blown. I've had to find ways to anchor down everything on the cart so that way the wind won't blow it away. Sometimes the wind's hard enough it will blow the hot dogs away. Like if I'll literally there's been a time where like I've set a hot dog out and the wind just throws it. I'm like, all right, well let me make you another one of those. I just wasted a hot dog.
Some local stray dog thanks you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, or if it's crazy hot or crazy cold outside, I'll just have to this is my job, so I just got to go put up with it.
Yeah.
And so I eventually like to upgrade to where I'm like, at least have like a cart or like a smaller like concession stand with walls at the very least, so that way I can keep it climate controlled to some degree. Other than that, I don't think I'm going to go any further, but only because this is more or less kind of like the vessel doing more comedy. Is like that's like the whole being for doing it. It's because like, I just need something to make a living with while I can keep getting better at comedy. To one day I can fully do comedy full time.
First of all, I don't believe that for a second.
No,
no, man. I think you're in too deep. I think you're going to do both for a very long time.
Well,
I think because look, there's people like, even huge famous comics who do it for a living very successfully, all have the other thing that they do very successfully as well. There's no reason you're going to have to pick and choose this.
I think, well, in my opinion, because like I remember, I think it was Mark Cuban said something like it a while back, I heard him say, where it's like, I think he was talking to someone else who was like, they were an aspiring entrepreneur or whatever, like up and start, and like they kind of had their hands in a bunch of different pots or whatever, and Mark Cuban told him basically his suggestion was to focus on one thing until you get good at that. Because he said, like, and he mentioned, it was probably on Shark Tank, I would have to guess, because he's like using like the other very successful people in the room as examples. He said that everyone here started in one specific thing, like they got really good at that one thing, and they struggled to get that off the ground. But once they did that, that gave them the freedom to be able to then expand and to do these other things. And like, and I think, and in my mind, that's kind of the same thing as I feel like if I'm always constantly having to divide my attention between like a self-employment, my own business I have, and then my comedy, then I feel like they're both suffering a little bit. And you know what I mean? And so like and maybe you'll come back to it. Maybe I'll leave the hot dog game, and then 10 years from now, I'll be like, you know what? I miss it.
Well, it'll really just come down to which one you excel at the quickest. Right? And then it will allow you to then be able to focus on the other one no matter which way it goes. It's a win-win is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, like, I guess so. I don't know, because really it really is supposed to be just like for me to like make more time. I can make my own schedule so I can.
But that's how it always starts.
That
right?
is true.
Like you ever heard that saying, like the person who should be the boss or the person who should be the president is not the person who wants to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like
the hot dog man who does it best.
Yeah. Like you're gonna end up doing it really well because you're thinking about it very pragmatic. Like you're not thinking like I want to be the hot dog king of Texas. Right. You're not thinking that. You're just thinking like, no, I want to use this income so I can do this comedy thing. But in order to do that, I've got to do it well.
Yeah.
And that's going to accidentally make you really good at it. You know what I mean? Like
I think anything you like really put your all into and really give a shit about, I think is generally going to turn out well. Because I think there's a lot of people, that's another thing with kind of how I split the hot dog cart people into two groups. That's the same thing with the first group. It's like they had just enough wherewithal to get through all like the red tape to like legally have a cart and sell it with the health department and all that. But to them, oftentimes it's like this is just their kind of means. Like this is the easiest way to not have to work for someone else and the easiest way for me to make money in an easy way.
Yeah.
But for me, that necessarily wasn't the case. Like it was just like I kind of had like a goal with it, and I knew that there was a lot that went. Like I said, I had a lot of pride, and I gave a shit about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that comes down to. And you can easily apply that to the comedy too, and shows, and where it's like I think you just believe in the product, and you make sure you put a good product out, and the money follows.
Yeah.
But you first have to give a shit about it, and then not be like the group of people I mentioned earlier who they try a show 2-3 times, and they're like, it didn't work. I guess it's never going to work. Or it's like, no, like you have to, keep giving to it,
Yeah. I imagine, though, that's like the amount that you deal with people on a daily basis now is probably got to be really good for comedy, too. Because even when you were calling and dealing, like I never realized how much some people struggle just with communication, that like meeting a stranger and just talking to them about whatever is very difficult for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And here you are slinging dogs, talking to people, and it's like, getting a BS, crack a joke here and there. Like, all right, I'll have a good one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You catch yourself like running bits on your card accidentally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to force it because or anything, but yeah, all the time. Anytime I see an opportunity, I'll make a joke. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you ever tell them on a show? You're like, hey, we're doing a comedy thing down here.
Rarely. I try not to, because it's like because obviously I take pride in it. I've also learned there's plenty of people who they could care less about comedy or going to see a show. So I try not to push it too often, but I have had the organically it'll come up, whether it's about like, you know, they're looking for something to do, or maybe they're like, or maybe someone just moved to town, or something like, and organically it'll come up, and then I'll be like, hey, you know, actually I'm over at Rose City, and I'll have a handful of people who come get a hot dog, and they're like,
didn't we see you?
Yeah, I was like, do you do comedy?
Did you talk about putting that toddler in that one thing? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you're the monster truck guy.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I got it now. Oh, speaking of that, man, it was really fun when I did get to watch you out there. Like one of the things that I thought was real intriguing about the setup is that so I went out there when Scott was headlining, and he was like trying to get all his high school friends to come watch a show, and then all of the like older people bought the tickets first, right?
Yeah.
So it was like a 50+ crowd or something for the most part, and the show had a good mix of like edgy or dirty comics and clean comics, right? And it was fun to watch the like different areas of the room burst into laughter, while other areas were like, that's a little too edgy for me.
Yeah. No, man, that night
it was a strange crowd.
That night was rough for me.
First of all, I loved it because Chris and I, when we were there, you know, we kind of talked to each other afterwards, and we're like, oh yeah, we loved the jokes, but we recognized that the room as a whole was not about it that night.
Okay, so yeah, but it's
so
my mentality going into it. I totally set myself up in the wrong way, because like, normally, just any show general, if you're the one opening, because I was hosting the show, and if you're opening up the show, just kind of as a general rule, you don't want to go too blue or too dirty, because it's like, you know, it's like going on a first date. You don't want to say something crazy crass out the gate, because you'll blow it, and you're like, they're never going to be on your side now. So and that goes for the whole entire show. So if you're the first one going up, you should try to keep it like. Over at Rose City, we don't like require the host to be like 100% clean, but it's like, you know, don't get too crazy
within reason. Yeah.
However, for this night specifically, I've hosted so many times there, so many nights. I had some new jokes I want to try out that weren't clean, and so I was like, fuck it, it'll be fine. I'll do whatever I want on this one. It'll be okay. Yeah. And then like. And I knew that Scott like was bringing a lot of his people on the show, and I was expecting it to be people like that was like in ages like his and mine range, which I'm 28. I think he's like 30 or 32, somewhere in there. I was expecting people will be like our age, people he knew from high school.
I can't remember if it was you or someone else, and they're like, "When the fuck did he graduate?"
Yeah, I made that comment because then 7 minutes before the show started. 7 minutes before the show started, another comic came up to me who was on the show. Her name's Tanja D. She works clean, and she asked me, she's like, hey, is this a clean show? I was like, no. It's like, there's some clean comics. Like I was like, Rocky Deer was on the show.
She was the more religious woman, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Rocky Deer was on the show, who does work clean. And at the time, I didn't know Scott worked clean. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, Rocky works clean, and our local Jared, like he's not dirty, but he's not. I mean, he's not clean, but he's not very dirty either. He's like almost clean. And then Scott's like, oh, well, I work clean. And then that leaves just me. And I'm like, God damn. And I'm like, and I look, and then you can see the crowd. It's like nothing but like 60 and up.
Yeah.
And like for most of the crowd, I'm like, oh God.
Here we go.
I was like, and I prepared to like go dirtier than usual out the gate. And I was like, oh, no. And so, and like, I had it, and I'm like, I can do clean comedy. Like I can do, like I have a clean set I can do, but I haven't done it very often. So I can't just like pull it out of my back pocket. So it was too close to the call for me to like make too many crazy changes. So I'm like, some of these jokes we're just gonna have to see how they go.
Yeah. I loved it, man. Because first of all, I love when people just like, you're gonna go for it, because you could have had the 60+ crowd that was way into it.
Yeah,
you never know, right? You just don't know. And it's like, I love that you were going for it, and I love when people know it's okay. I don't think this is going to do it, but you're like still committed.
Yeah,
you know, and
I try my best, because at the like I said, like you like at the end of the day, like you want to like give these people their money's worth. Like I want these people to have a good time. I don't want them to moan and groan or anything like that. And like, so I will try to make pivots if I can, but that was like one of those ones where it's like I was so prepared like mentally for one direction. and just to learn, I missed the exit 5 miles ago, kind of thing. So I was like, we're stuck going this way, kind of. You know,
that's always going to be better. I was just having a talk, not on the podcast, just about there are some comics around here that I really love. I think they're killers, killers. But they lean on material that they know is extremely good, and they've done it for a very long time. And you know, I don't know them well enough to have that conversation of like, you're so good and you're so intelligent that it's worth you taking these risks on this material, right? And I don't know them that well, you know. And we were just talking, but I think it's way better to go the route you did, which is like, we said we're going to try it tonight. Let's try it. And then now you have at least something to gauge off of it, right? Because what if 2 minutes into that set you were thinking, it's not going to work, and you pivoted, and so you went to some safe material that you knew was going to work, right? But what if it went the other way? What if 2 or 3 minutes in, they started to understand what you were doing, or you found a way to, you know, get in there and wedge in a little bit, and now they're on board with you, and it crushes, right? It could have gone that way.
Yeah, I mean,
and on a different show, it probably will.
Yeah,
right?
It certainly didn't. I mean, it certainly didn't crush, like, because I didn't do that great on the show, but it wasn't like the room didn't hate me.
No,
you know, it was like, and I found a way to like kind of get them on board to some degree, because I could at the very least get them laugh and be at the kind of like. And they're like, sorry, this is the material, kind of like comments, and the kind of like letting the room know I was there with them, essentially.
From our perspective, though, they weren't hating you; they were just sizing you up.
Yeah.
So it's like if you had the ability to go for like 30 minutes, and then they could size you up and then get on board with you, I think it would go differently. But you just had you were doing it from the host position, where you have less time to get them on
less
that track.
time and less freedoms to kind of, because like
but they weren't saying like fuck this.
Yeah,
they weren't going that far with
I didn't scare them off or nothing. Yeah,
no.
But yeah, and it's like I said, if it would have been like any other show that I was opening up, I would have done what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But as that night, I kind of threw caution in the wind a little bit, because I was like, fuck it, you know, like we'll do it this way. And I was also anticipating, like I said, a younger crowd. I was anticipating a specific crowd, and I was way off.
Yeah. Well, from just a fan perspective, I appreciate when people go for it. I think that's a good trait. Like, treat it like your hot dog cart, man. Let's just do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, because like it wasn't like you know how open micers are. Like it's this weird phenomenon where they all go for the similar dick jokes right out the gate, and it's like, how did you all start here, right? So it wasn't like that where it's like, here we go with the shock jokes. Like it was, they were clever. It was just they weren't there for it that night.
Yeah,
yeah.
I try. Yeah, no, I try. Yeah, no, you're right. You see it all the time, and that was another conversation Kevin Deanna and I just had, where it's like, aren't you trying to like make these people laugh? Like, it's you know, like why are you just like why are you just content with all the jokes ending and like it's like that's not what you want, you know? Like,
you got them halfway there though.
Yeah,
at least they're reacting to it.
Yeah, no, which is absolutely true. You know, it's I know I've heard like Louis C.K. make those kind of comments on his material, where like obviously he's like the guy who's mastered making people laugh at those kind of topics, and it's like, and it's a sign that like, all right, you got something, but it's like there's loads of work that goes in after that, and more than likely an open micer's been doing it for 6 months, doesn't even know how to do that work. So it's like, so in my mind, it's like, maybe if you want, like hold on to it, come back to it in the future, but it's like you're not really quite equipped to make this joke, you know, Louis C.K. level, no, but you know, or whatever.
But you're right though, like Hilm, Jesselnick, like they purposely get you to the groan. They just figure out the twist to get you back on the laugh.
Yeah.
Right. But they're constantly pushing and pulling on you like that to get you really uncomfortable before they, you know, release that tension on you and like, oh, that's okay. He's not horrible.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things that like that they go into the reason why comics kind of like a lot of open mic comics at the beginning kind of lean on that and go towards that initially is one, because it's like, writing jokes is like a thing you have to figure out how to do, and it's kind of hard to do. And essentially, whenever it comes to anything you're saying on stage, you're just looking for the punchline, whatever your topic is. And whenever it comes to like edgier stuff, darker stuff, the punchline is a lot easier to find, because it's like, oh, the dead baby obviously is the punchline here, you know, or whatever. Whatever that is. And so it's a lot easier to figure out the joke in those kind of things, for one. Two, I think like just in general comics, like I know at least for me personally, the radar for like what is acceptable and what people like, how people respond to is kind of off. And like, because I know I've been in the position plenty of times where like I was in a public setting and I made a joke and everyone's like, why'd you say that? And I was like, okay. I saw it. I didn't realize until it came out of my mouth how like kind of fucked up that was, you know? and you have to figure that out, you know? And
just from doing this podcast and like getting to talk to you guys and hang around, it's like the amount I've had to remind myself, like, do not talk at work like you talk to these people.
Yes.
Like, you know, it's constantly like, oh yeah, that's not going to go well here.
Yeah, the way because whenever it comes to like our Tyler community, it's we're all very like supportive of each other, and like from the beginning, I've always been a matter of like trying to make sure like everyone's getting better at a good pace and continuing to grow as well. And the way I've like the conversations I've had and explained it to a few people, the way I see it at least is like. Because some people will tell a joke, the crowd gets uncomfortable, and they might not even realize they made the crowd uncomfortable, or at the very least, they're just like not aware of why the crowd got uncomfortable, you know? And so the way I've been putting it is I would say, like, if it's a joke that you tell at the water cooler at work, and it gets you to and like now you have to go talk to HR because of it, like, if you're doing it on stage, there's a good chance that, you know, the crowd's going to get uncomfortable. That doesn't mean don't do it, but it just means you have to approach it much more carefully.
Yeah.
And figure out a way that's going to, like, that they can digest it and, like, you know, it's going to be palatable for them to take in, you know?
Yeah. Are you finding yourself, because you're working with Rose City, that you're now just like, you know, now I'm becoming the hot dog guy. Are you also becoming like a little bit of the mentor out there where you're talking to these new people a lot?
In some degrees for like the very, very new people. Like
Yeah.
I try not to be.
Yeah, but naturally they're just coming to you, right?
For the newer people, yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you're a new comic, you're looking for any guidance and any information and any help from anyone that's been doing it longer than you. So that's just how it goes.
Well, and you're the booker. Like in their mind, they're thinking, well, this guy knows, you know, what gets booked on stages, so I'll talk to him.
Yeah, to some degree, yes, and it's actually happening more because now, like, they also see that, like, I'm getting booked on like shows like outside of Tyler, like I'm getting booked in shows like in Dallas or Austin or wherever, and then they're like, oh wow, he's going out to get shows, and so it's kind of growing to that too. But luckily for me, I mean, I've got like a really clear cut system for getting booked on the shows at Rose City for the locals at least, and it's like because we have. Like an average of somewhere between 20 and 25 people signing up for the open mic every Monday.
Nice.
And like, you know, there's a select few local comics who get booked like regularly to host the shows, and there's another group that like they won't host the shows because they don't got the material that's like they won't like offend an audience out the gate, but they are bookable, funny enough to be booked like for other spots and shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's all the other comics that are at open mics, like still figuring it out a little bit. And the way, whenever, and I'll get the question from them quite often about like, how do I go about getting on a show? And it's very clear cut normally. It's like, once you got 5 minutes of material, you're confident. Once you got like 5 minutes of like, this is the material that works, consistently you bring it in front of audiences, and usually they laugh at it. Like, it's a very objective like form of, once you can do that, then it's like, come to me, I'll give you a guest spot on a show. And if you hang, like if you do about as well as everyone else did on the show, because it's like, you know, crowds can be like easier or harder at times. If you can hang about the level everyone else on the show is doing, then like we'll see about, you know, getting you on a show. And then like now you're going to do 10 minutes next or whatever, or maybe 7 minutes, you know, whatever. And it's a pretty clear cut path to how that goes. And some people get there quicker than others, but that's just how that goes. It's
so important though. Like I think it's interesting because you have such a inside view of all this because you've just been so with it, right? But like from an outsider, it's like I think maybe you're not noticing some of the important things you guys are end up doing. Because one, you got to be able to kind of foster that if you're going to have your comedy scene grow, right? There's people who accidentally kind of become mentors. Now, what degree that is, that varies, right? But, you know, you were saying you've got 25 people consistently signing up for your open mics. It's like, that's a pretty big deal. It's like one of our big clubs around here, they just stopped their open mic. And I don't know why they would do it. And it's like, what do you mean you don't do an open mic anymore? You're a major club. And, so it's like not understanding that is a key, you know, it's like your sports minor league. It's like you've got to have it if you're going to develop people that are going to be there later on as your features and your headliners. And so the fact that you're getting 25 consistently showing up to do that, that's a big deal. You know, you have the community there now that you're working with, and 25 is going to turn into 30. Yeah, I see the time.
No, it's okay. It's I will tell you one thing. It's like, because where I do take a lot of pride in Rose City and like in the work that Christopher and I have put into that, I take possibly even more pride in like in how the community's come along. Because whenever it very first got started, all I knew is that I wanted to do comedy really bad. However, with the job I had at the time, at least, I couldn't find a way to feasibly, because like the only way to start and to figure it out and get better is like you got to start at the open mics. There's no open mics in Tyler. I'd have to drive out to Dallas regularly to do that, which is 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And driving
to
2
get
hours,
a 1 a.m. open mic spot.
to get 3 minutes at 1 in the morning is rough. So it's like, I was like, it's not viable. I was like, I'm not going to get, if I'm only doing 1 mic a week, I'm like, it's for 3 minutes at 1 in the morning. It's like, I'm not going to get better, and I might as well not be doing it. And so then that's whenever I kind of turn, I'm like, well, the guy who's doing comedy here right now, I'm like, he's doing it badly, but at least he's doing it. Maybe I can kind of like, convince him and try to help like figure this out, which that, not to get into it, but like I just fell backwards into the responsibility of that. And I went from being like, maybe I can convince him to change these things to like, now you control everything. I fell backwards into that real fast. But I knew it was me, and I knew there were other people in Tyler. I didn't know them personally, but it's like, I know there's people here who want to do comedy because like I've seen them show up here and there. So like I put out a feeler on Reddit. We have like a Tyler Reddit page. I was like, hey, is anyone or interested in doing comedy? I got one person. His name's Tegan Dotson, who still does comedy now. He's one of our regular hosts. He hit me up and we met for coffee, and like we wrote together. He talked about his experience and we kind of chatted, and like it was just him and I, and then I happened to run into Christopher because he was like walking by the coffee shop as I was outside. And I was like, hey, I saw you at the comedy place or whatever. And then that's where that's where I met him. And then from there, I was like, all right, well, and I remember telling Tegan at the coffee shop, it was just him and I was like, I really want to get a scene started here. Like I want this to grow into a community, even if it's like 10 people, whatever, just something. So that way we can have something like to grow on, something we can like, and making sure like everyone kind of staying good and getting better and all this kind of stuff. And from going to that to our first open mics at Rose City, but for the first like couple months, it was literally me and 2 other comics every week, plus the owner sitting in the audience in the little room. And then that grew and grew and grew to what it is now. We're now Monday night. We have like a real crowd of people who show up, the crowd of people who pays $5 to come see an open mic. And we got, like I said, 20 plus people signing up every week to do the mic. And it's grown into something crazy. And that goes back to like what I was saying, like you just got to be consistent with it. Make sure it's still good. Even whenever no one's there, still treat it like a real show, like treat it like a real product.
Yeah.
And everything else follows. And like we just consistently kept at it and just kept growing. And to see the amount of like, I love to see any of our local Tyler guys getting booked on shows out here, and to see them like go out and like it's awesome to me to kind of see like where someone's going, because all these are people who, it's some of them are doing comedy a little bit before like I was doing comedy, so like I'm not going to pretend like everyone started after me in Tyler or anything like that. And of course you got like people like Tyler Elliott, Brandon Davidson, who they just happened to live in Tyler, but all their growth came in Dallas, and they were doing it for 10 years at that time. So not including them either. But to see a lot of these people who like they started at Rose City Comedy and now they've gotten really good and they get booked on shows and like they're making a good impression. I'm like, yeah, like go show them what Tyler's made of.
Exactly.
Yeah, go see, like, yeah, go ahead. I'm proud to him, and I'll vouch for him for any show that I can. And it's really, I take a lot of pride in the scene and how it's come along.
Well, and I think it's better for even our scene out here. It's like if you got other people coming in who are hungry to write and work, it's going to keep you on your toes around here too. And to me, it's like the more we can get people going back and forth, both areas are going to really benefit from that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, let's end it on that, man. Thank you so much for squeezing this in on your way up to the show. Best of luck at Cowabunga. I think you're going to enjoy it. And do you want anybody to follow you any particular way, like Instagram or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Instagram, it's at Comedy Does Jason. It's probably the best way because I try to post like my shows there and stuff. And of course, Rose City Comedy in Tyler, Texas. We do shows Friday, Saturday. And we also have the open mic on Monday. I know if any Dallas comics happen to be listening to this, I know it's quite a trek, and I do not blame you for not coming. I understand, but it's a really fun mic. It's rare that you get an open mic that's actually fun to do.
Yeah,
and if you want to get booked on a show and you want to kind of show me what you're made of, it's like the easiest way to do it is that way. And again, I understand you can get booked other ways, but
look, if you're trying to make it in comedy, go out to Tyler for a minute. All right,
impress me.
Check it out one time.
I'm the gatekeeper.
Hey, the fact is we shut down an open mic around here that couldn't get people to come in for free, and you guys are getting a crowd at $5 a ticket for your open mic. So there's something there that's worth checking out, right? Just say it. Just agree with me.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to end it on that. No. All right, man. Best of luck. We'll get you back on here soon.
Appreciate you.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.